Hey, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? This is Kevin Sims, and I am your host for the Definition of a Man podcast. Where here we have created a new space for man-to-man conversation with the hope as well as intent through discussion to just really encourage men to walk and live in their own true and authentic definition of what manhood really is. As I always am, I'm super excited for the guest that I have today. The guest that I have with me is a senator of a newly elected senator, if it's okay to say that, out of the state of Nebraska. He is the senator for District 11. And it's my pleasure to welcome Mr. Terrell McKinney to the Definition of a Man podcast. Senator Terrell McKinney. Let me switch that up real quick. Senator Terrell McKinney, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good, bro. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really good. I definitely thank and appreciate you for allowing your time today, here with me. I had actually asked Senator McKinney to come on for an episode that I'm entitling Let's Talk Politics. Pretty simple, I feel. Where on this episode we are taking a look at things from a political view. We'll be discussing the current state of politics as well as getting some background on our guest today and honestly what brought him into the political world. So listen, Senator McKinney, if you're ready, let's just dive right into it.
I'm ready.
All right. So again, I like to start at the top. What brought you to the world of politics?
Honestly, it started, doing a lot of volunteering and community organizing in the community. I started kind of my first really initial kind of introduction into community organizing was with the organization Black Men United. And I started out volunteering with them, helping out with some initiatives and things that they were putting on. And then eventually over time, they had asked me to join their board. And that just morphed into more stuff. And then over like a couple years span, I ended up getting a job with the organization Nebraska Appleseed that's based out of Lincoln. And
Mm,
my job initially was as a hunger action advocate. It was focused on trying to understand food insecurity across
mm,
our state, but mainly in Lincoln and Omaha, doing focus groups and going to different community spaces, trying to talk to people about why are they food insecure and what could be done to address the issue. And then uh, my my position as a hunger action advocate, it ended, and then they asked me to come back on as an organizer for Medicaid expansion. It had just got passed on the ballot, and they needed me to kind of still go around and do the same thing, but try to educate our community that Medicaid expansion was passed, but it hadn't been implemented yet, and try to encourage people to call the governor's office, call their senator, and more so also just educate them on what's going to happen once it has been expanded and if they qualify as well. And
mm.
then during my time at Appleseed, which is like a nonprofit that it's like a law firm, it's a lot of lawyers, and I started to think about law school. So I started studying for the LSAT. I took the LSAT and ended up getting into Creighton University in 2019. And but I also during that time I was thinking about running for office, and a few people that I know in the community that I do a lot of work with was like, you should run because Senator Chambers' term was coming to an end and he couldn't run again, at least for another 4 years. And I thought about it, and I kind of was like, you know what, I might as well do it because I'm sure that whoever gets in that office, I'm gonna have a complaint about. And I was like,
Right.
might as well just throw my name in a hat and see what happens. Honestly, I was
Right.
like,
Yeah.
instead of complaining, try to put yourself in that position, and that's what I was able to do.
And so it sounds like it was just one door opening after the other,
Yeah, definitely.
leading you to where you're at now. Before I get to my next question, I do want to ask you. So I know that when you were elected senator, and give me the background. I know that when you were elected senator, there were some things as far as the governor not reaching out or he didn't congratulate you. Like, what was the mishap with that?
So on the first day of the legislative session, he welcomed all the new senators, but he forgot to say my name, or he just didn't say my name. He
Mm,
said he forgot, but when you look at pictures, it was on the teleprompter or whatever he was reading off of. So whether he forgot or just intentionally did it, it didn't happen. He sent a note to my office saying he apologized, but then I think he might have, once people found out, he said something on Twitter, but we never had a face-to-face or a phone conversation about it.
And I mean, with him being governor as long as he has been, he kind of knows the flow of stuff and how things go. So if he wants to say he forgot, I guess we'll give him that.
Right.
I guess we'll give him that. Before I do move on, what is the actual role of a senator? I want to make sure that the audience has that understanding before we proceed.
So in Nebraska is unique. We have a unicameral. We're not like other states where we have a House and a Senate. We have one body, which makes us super unique, and it's only 49 of us. And we have the role is basically you have the ability to introduce legislation. You get out if you got an idea. If you tell me, hey Terrell, I need you to introduce legislation to, you know, do something about jobs or something. If we get an idea, put it on paper, you send it to bill drafters in the legislature, and that's a bill, and maybe you'll get it passed. The role is so it's to, find ways to introduce legislation to improve the communities that you represent, to advocate for your community, talk policy, try to understand policies, and try to keep the community educated on policies. But the biggest, I say, role is your role in fighting for great legislation and fighting horrible legislation at the end of the day. And you gotta that's your job.
Yeah. One thing that I've really learned about politics, Terrell, is that it's really a tug of war. Like it's really a tug of war. But you have mentioned a few minutes ago, Senator Ernie Chambers, who was a senator from Nebraska who did retire from or he couldn't
He
run
could,
again, is that correct?
yes.
Okay, he couldn't run again, but he has served decades in the as a senator of Nebraska for District 11. And I mean, his name rings bells. I think if you just drop the name, then you already know off the bat, especially if you go into your history and what he's done for his community. So, Senator McKinney, I want to ask you, standing on the shoulders of a senator like Ernie Chambers, what would you say you've learned from him?
In like my time of knowing him in the short, because I think I met him for the first time in 2017. But I remember growing up, you would always hear about Ernie Chambers. If something happened, somebody would always mention his name. And I think what I learned from him is you don't have to sacrifice yourself to try to get things done for the community. And that at the end of the day, any decision you make, you should be able to sleep at bed at night making that decision. And I remember that all the time, always thinking about it when I'm making a vote. Like if I don't feel comfortable about something, I stand up and be like, look, I don't like this bill. I'm this way with it. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it or lie to you. If I don't feel comfortable with something, I'll just tell you. And just staying true to the community and staying true to the people that you represent. I think he embodies it. He's the definition of it. He went drive down to Lincoln in times when it was bad. So
Yeah.
and it's still not great, but back then it was a lot worse. He was the only Black man traveling in that road to Lincoln every day. So I commend him for a lot. He's always there. If I need to call him and ask him a question, he always answers, or he randomly calls me and tell me something as well.
Nice.
Yeah. So, a lot of people ask me, how does it feel to come after him? And I just try to tell people that I don't think about it because I know for a fact I can never replace him or try to be him. So I'm never going to attempt to try to be him. I'm just going to build on that foundation that he set and try to take it farther.
Nice.
And that's my approach. Like I'm Terrell, he Ernie, and we two different people. We come from the same community, but we're from different generations. So our approaches to policy and change is going to be a little different.
Right, right. And those are, I mean, some big shoes to fill. And I'm sure, people are saying, well, Senator McKinney is Senator Chambers' successor. And so I know that has to put some pressure on you, especially being that I have met Senator Chambers a few times, and I'm talking about from kid on up. he's definitely somebody who applies major pressure and is very unapologetic about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's from that day where it's just kind of like a tell it like it is type of thing. And you get that from him. So I like how you say that, you're Senator McKinney, you're Terrell, he's Ernie. Like, you guys are two different people, but you guys definitely have some of the same agenda, if that's properly said.
Yeah, we probably agree on almost everything. How
Yeah.
we approach things are just different.
Yeah.
I still, I'm outspoken. I don't bite my tongue, but I'm just more me. And
Right. Right.
yeah.
How do you feel about the current climate of politics right now, which is all over the place in my eyes? But from a senator standpoint, how do you feel about the current climate of politics?
Honestly, I think it's unproductive.
Mm-hmm.
I think, too many people, no matter what side you're on, whether you were Democrat or Republican, you can't forget the fact that people elected you to, get change to happen. And it's more so on a federal level, it's more unproductive. I know on a state level, it's not as chaotic, but the political climate is crazy right now. I try to tell people like even having the facts and logic do not matter to people. Like you could have receipts on it, like nope, that's
Right.
not true, it's fake, and it's like, come on, man, like it's some people I just shake my head like, how could you stand up and say what you just said with a straight face? But on a state level, because we are technically a bipartisan unicameral, I was able to, even though the governor didn't say my name the first day, I was able to work with him to pass the bill that ended hair discrimination in the workplace in Nebraska. I still was able to work with him and get, draft language to get it done. I worked with another, Republican senator to pass a bill to, adopt financial literacy in our public schools. So I mean, it's crazy. I think I just got a unique, approach to it. I used to wrestle, so I went to school with people that come from rural parts of the country, so I know how to operate with them a little bit, and I'm not afraid to, talk to them. And honestly, I went down there to get things passed for the community. I didn't go down there to have shouting matches with people and stand in the sand and not get nothing done and be unproductive. Because when I walk away, I want to say I at least help and try to improve my community. And it's not about my view or my political view. It's about the people that are suffering.
And I think what's sad is again, it goes back to what I said about the tug of war with politics today. And like I say, I don't have nearly as much experience or knowledge as you do of politics. I have to be honest with you. I'm always more of a historic political head in a sense. Like I always, to talk about like Nixon and Watergate and to talk about the Reagan era, during the crack times. Like that's kind of really what excites me. I guess just because you always have the Democrats and the Republicans, and they just go for blood, Terrell. Like they go for blood. And so that's why I say for me, I couldn't do politics. Like I know kind of like where my headspace is at, especially with this previous administration, he came in and shook up everything. You see what I'm saying? I feel like he came in and shook up everything. So I feel like the current state of politics, like you said, is just all over the place.
And I tell people, and some people probably tell me I probably shouldn't say it, but I'm Black, and historically, both Republicans and Democrats have negatively affected our community. So that's where I'm coming from. Even though I'm a Democrat, at the end of the day, I'm Black first, and although I don't represent all Black people, I remember that when I go into these spaces, because it keeps me grounded and it keeps me centered to try to disseminate what they saying over here and what they saying over here, and what's the BS and what's not the BS. You know what I mean? So I go at it that way. Stay centered on you're a Black man in America. If somebody was going to improve our situation, one of these sides would have did it. Not to say somebody hasn't, but it's just a fact that, you know, we've been disproportionately affected historically since we got off the slave ships. So I'm not too sold on the I'm a Democrat, I can't work with this Republican person. You know what I mean? Like, and I grew up in Omaha, and you know, I got family and friends that's in the streets. If I wanted to basically, you know, politically gangbang, then you know,
You
it's
could join in.
right.
You could join in. Yeah. Yeah. No, I really like how you said that because I think that people hold too much weight with their party. You see what I'm saying? Like, and again, I dive into some, political headlines as far as like, Liz Cheney and what's going on with her and, just how the party is just really uh honestly just, close the door on her. It's just so sad that you can't really stand in. And that's what it seems like to me. Like you can't really stand in your own opinion first and then your party's opinion second. Because like you say, you're a black man, you've always been one. You don't know to be anything but black. You see what I'm saying? So it's like you have to come from that point first. And staying on that, so there's something, one of the bigger continuous headlines is defunding the police. And I want your take on this, Senator McKinney. One, if you could explain what defund, if you could explain our audience what defund the police means, and then also to that, what's your opinion on that matter?
In my opinion, defunding the police means, you know, more so a reallocation of city and state resources to better serve the communities that the police are supposed to be serving. So in Omaha, you know, we give 160 plus million to the police, but the city has only dedicated 20 million to community across a whole city. And take a community like North Omaha that's over police. I don't logically, it makes no sense to me. Don't you think if you made sure people had decent housing, transportation, food, jobs, livable wage jobs, not just jobs that give you the basic minimum wage. I'm talking about livable wage.
Yeah.
That's a better investment to decrease crime. I think the approach that America has taken to addressing crime and violence in our communities has been more harmful than good. Just locking people, if just locking people up solve the problem, we got America is the worst mass incarcerated country in the world, and we still have all these issues. We still got. I live in North Omaha, so I still got people shooting. You know, around the corner from where I live, I still hear about people getting killed. But we want to have more police on the streets or invest more money into police. That's not helpful because it's people still waking up every day poor. So that's what defund the police means to me. I know people are off put by the word, by the phrase or whatever, but honestly, if you offended by a phrase, you're really not trying to understand the issue or why people even came up with it.
Yeah.
A phrase shouldn't say, "Oh no, I can't work with you because you say a phrase." Dive deep into why the phrase was created and what are they trying to do. And I think a lot of people are not trying to do that.
Mm, and honestly, that's a mouthful right there. I promise you, that's a mouthful right there. As far as defund the police, man, I think that you have some people who feel like you just want to completely get rid of the, policing system. And that's not the case. That was one thing that I had to realize. Like, that's not the case. But like you said, to really put into the community the necessities as far as livable wages, like you said, livable wages that you can honestly take and build from, because you said in the numbers, you said that North Omaha gets 160 mil, but only
No, no, the police. So
police do apologize.
the city's police budget is like 160 plus $1 million. And the city has only dedicated about 20 million to community
That's crazy.
initiatives or whatever. And that's not just in North Omaha.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
We got the highest poverty rate, lowest, you know, highest unemployment, which is people will stand up and say Nebraska has a low unemployment rate. But if you come here, it's like 4 times that of the state average. You know, it's so, yeah.
And it's how people, I think it's also how people kind of care to um, choose to promote what fits their narrative. You see what I'm saying? I think people do a lot of that. They take what fits their narrative and they'll run with it. Um, and so I hope that, so on the other, to touch on this briefly, on the aspect of like the Black Lives Matter movement and what we do see as far as our people being taken up, being killed. And now, Terrell, the thing is or Senator McKinney, I'm sorry. Now the thing is, it's in our face and there's still no respect behind it. You see what I'm saying? There's still, to me, there's still no respect behind it. So what do you feel, as especially with being a Black man in America today, with everything that is going on, do you ever feel there could be a connection between community and policing again? Because I feel there's a disconnect from my standpoint.
Honestly, it's gonna be tough because the police originate from slave patrols, and I think there's gonna have to be a lot of dismantling of that system, the police system in general in this country. Because I was having a conversation earlier, and people were like, "Okay, the protest happened last year. Did we get any further?" And in my opinion, no, because we still have yet to have any real significant police oversight and accountability policy and legislation adopted, not only in the state or city, but in this country. It's still an uphill battle. We still fighting that system that's telling us, no, y'all don't know what y'all talking about. We not oppressing y'all like y'all say we are, say we are, but we got it on video. But it's still, it's still, it's an uphill battle. So I'm optimistic, but I know it's gonna be a process. It's going to take some, in my opinion, it's going to take some years. It's not going to change because Derek Chauvin got convicted or somebody else get convicted. We're going to have to really buckle down and make sure we get legislation and policy adopted in this country and in the state of Nebraska. That's the only way I could ever envision real change happening. And we also got to make sure we take a hard look at police contracts, because that's what they hide behind, and that's how they getting off a lot of times. It's those contracts are an issue as well. It's not just the laws, it's the contracts that the state and the city has with police organizations, and then those are a whole nother animal in itself. Fraternal Order of Police and all those other those unions, they're an issue as well. So I mean, I'm optimistic. Maybe in our lifetime we'll see it, but I know it's gonna be a battle. They created a whole Blue Lives Matter thing. We saying our lives matter. That should tell you enough.
And it's crazy, and I tell people this, it's crazy that you have to even say a phrase like Black Lives Matter in 2020, 2021. You see what I'm saying? It's crazy that
I think we were tricked into believing that after Dr. King died and Civil Rights Act was passed and we got Obama, even before Obama, that, things had progressed and it got better for Black people. But it didn't. The hood is still the hood
still.
We under every president since Dr. King died, the hood, it got worse.
Yeah.
We had the crack epidemic, we had the war on drugs, the increase in mass incarceration, all that happened after Dr. King.
Right.
And so, this country, tell us one day they love us and the next day they kill us. So I take everything they say with a grain of salt until I see some tangible things take place.
Right. Yeah. And it's almost like, how would people in this country expect you to feel when when Senator McKinney, I'm sorry, when we now see this on camera, on video, body cam, all of this? It's like, how are you supposed to feel? And I've even had people ask me, Kevin, have you ever, been, subject to police brutality and things of that nature? And, I share what experiences I have had. It's nothing like what we've seen, but, I do share experiences where, I feel like I have been somewhat targeted in certain senses. But again, Senator McKinney, it's just sad. It's sad. But you had touched on how over the years, the hood has still been the hood. And, nothing's really changed when it does come in those regards. So I want to ask you, to the people who feel like politics doesn't affect them personally, what would you say to them?
Politics affects every second of your life, whether you want to believe it or not, it does. You can't. Politics affect, the type of streets you drive on every day. Politics affect the type of food you have in a grocery store. It affects whether you have a jury or your peers. It affects so many levels of our lives, the education of our kids, the education you got while you was in school. There's so many things that relate back to politics. And if certain policies happen or don't happen, you could be positively affected or negatively affected. And I think us as a people, we have to get more politically educated and involved. It's not to say we stupid or don't care. I just think, it hasn't been explained to us like it should have been, and it hasn't been a priority for us because we was always stuck on a go to school, go to college, and get out the hood. It was never go to school, go to college, and get politically educated as well. So when you do make it out, you got enough knowledge to assist other people on your way up as well through policies and things like that. So I think it's on us, but I'm not one to shame the community and say people are, stupid or, they don't care. I think, we all learn at our own pace. 5 years ago, I didn't care about politics too much.
And now look at you, a whole senator. Yeah. So listen, we have actually reached the end of this episode. I definitely want to thank Senator Terrell McKinney for joining me. But before we get out of here, Senator McKinney, please let people know how they can get in contact with you, keep up with you, with everything that you have going on.
To reach me, you can reach me at, my office email is tmckinney@leg.ne.gov. Office number is 402-471-2612. You could also follow me on social media. I think Instagram is SEN McKinney LD11, and I think Twitter is the same as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so before we do head out, what's next? What you got next?
Right now we're in the interim, and I'm trying to figure out what bills I'm gonna try to introduce next year. So I'm trying to work through that process and see what I could get done next year.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen again, Senator McKinney, I definitely want to thank you. I wish you all the luck in your career moving forward, wherever that takes you. You know what I'm saying? As I did state before, my name is Kevin Sims. Of course, you guys can follow me on Instagram, Kevin Sims Official, on IG, Twitter at Kaz Royalty. Also follow the Definition of a Man show page on IG. I certainly want to thank you all for tuning in. I again want to thank Senator McKinney for coming to get the conversation started for some and to keep it going for others. So until next time, you guys take care. Definition of a man.